BBC News, London.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the situation in Myanmar. I'm joined now by Kanni Wignaraja, the UN Assistant Secretary General and Regional Director for Asia and the Pacific at the United Nations Development Programme. Thanks so much for being with us here. What's your characterisation of how recovery efforts are going so far?
It's very difficult, Katrina, because it's not just about access to some of the parts of the most affected communities, both urban and rural. This is still a country where 75% of people were living at subsistence or below subsistence level, so on very meager means, and had very little to start with. So just that this is a devastation we've not seen since the 1940s, which has taken out the little that they've got. So one has to look at this a bit differently. It's also a country under civil war. So this is not even a standard response to even a large earthquake. It is during a war and a country where the population is really suffering already with large numbers, millions displaced multiple times over.
To what extent will that ceasefire help the progress of the humanitarian efforts?
Oh, it absolutely will help. However, for the moment, what we've heard so far across the UN and partners is that it's a unilateral ceasefire by the opposition groups. I hope very soon we are going to see this also by the de facto authorities, so that everyone then respects a total ceasefire to allow for both search and rescue, but also for the kind of immediate recovery, relief, and rebuild that now has to happen.
And is that being frustrated by the current military leadership?
Well, for them, I mean, they're also affected. As you know, the capital city, Naypyidaw, was also struck very hard. We've got teams in Mandalay, in Naypyidaw, harder to get into Sagaing. The discussions with them range right now, the urgency is to get relief efforts, search and rescue teams there. We have 13 countries that are on the ground. So that is something that we're trying to look at, and a focus is to make sure all the assistance goes to all communities affected. And that so far has been the case. The impediment literally has been the logistical difficulty, because other than one major roadway, a lot of the bridges and the access roads are difficult. But we haven't been stopped from trying to get to people who need our help. Whether they agree then to a ceasefire, and certainly the stopping of all aerial bombing at this stage, that is left to be seen. But this is where all countries that are providing support and all international partners have to urge a total ceasefire at this time.
And on that international effort and those partners, has the shuttering of USAID had a noticeable impact here?
You know, the US has always been globally, whether it's in hard times like this or otherwise, a critical development player. So they are missed. The hope is that they will come in, maybe through other partners. But at this moment, there are many who are lending a hand and are in there. I think the critical thing is to let the humanitarian work go on. And in fact, the support needed for that is still extensive. So wherever the US and others can step in, even through the UN and their partners, I hope they do so and expand that. And immediately to go into recovery. You know, when people are confronted by their homes, their shops, their schools, their clinics destroyed, putting that back, removing the debris, making it safe for people to get back and rebuild their homes. There is good enough local materials, but they have to be rebuilt based on more earthquake resistant codes and materials. This is all possible. It just needs a breathing space for this to happen. Remember, this earthquake happened right on the fault line of two major tectonic plates, right? The Indian and Eurasian plates just crashing into each other. This is like King Kong and Godzilla fighting under the earth. And on top of the earth, you have a civil war going on and an economic crash. So it really is a meeting of lots of despairing devastation for people, 55 million people who really need hope. I'm told that about 46 million of that 55 million felt this earthquake one way or the other. That's what the remote sensing data says. That's astounding. We've not seen this type of shocks for a long time.
Indeed, absolutely huge. Kanni Wignaraja, UN Assistant Secretary General, thank you so much for joining us here on BBC News.